Thank you again, Carla, and welcome everybody. Before I started, I actually want to say big thank you to the EyeforPharma crowd. So Carla, please convey this to your colleagues and Paul in particular. I think it's phenomenal that you guys changed within very short time period. From an excellent in-person event, which I've had the pleasure of attending the last 2 years, to this virtual event with a multiple of participants from around the world. So I think this is really a milestone, and we're very pleased to be holding this workshop, which it turns out virtually may even have more participants than if we had presented and workshopped this in person in Philadelphia. While we're still gathering, for those of you who don't know yet, let me just say a few words about Deallus, in a way, a brief commercial window. So Deallus is a global management consulting firm. We specialize in life sciences and have a heritage in competitive intelligence. We really work with clients to achieve competitive advantage through the generation of strategic intelligence and actionable insights. And our strength is therapeutic area depth, deep understanding of client needs, and a fair amount of proven methodologies to deliver strategic value across the entire product life cycle and the broader organization. We have staff close to 100 and presence in all major pharmaceutical markets through offices in LA, New York, but then in Europe also in London, and in Asia in Tokyo and Shanghai, and most recently down under also in Sydney. 25 languages spoken by our own Deallus. We serve we serve half of the 25 global pharma and have therapeutic area strength in oncology, rare disease vaccines, and other specialty areas, as well as most of the primary care space. So again, this was just the commercial window while we were still gathering. I can see we're now close to 30 participants. Let me just acknowledge all of you. It's fantastic that you're making time. And as Carla mentioned earlier, if at all possible, we would love to see your faces. So if you can switch on your video, we will have an even more interactive experience today. So thank you for that. What are we trying to accomplish today? Well, there are really three things. As you may have picked up from when I said that right now, one of the things we do is gather strategic intelligence and make and generate competitive advantage. And the secret sauce in between, the secret path that gets you from A to B, are these competitive insights we'll be talking about today. We will do that in a very hands-on way, and I'm sure we'll have fun and also build some connections along the way. The main underlying question in all of this is, of course, what is an insight and how do you make it actionable? So a lot of people talk about insights, and so will we today. So there's actually a very nice academic perspective about insights, and a whole marketing framework, which we'll leverage today also. So when we look at the agenda, first what we'll do today is we'll actually watch two brief videos featuring preeminent scholars talk about customer insights. Then we'll review the framework of customer insights and introduce an analog framework for competitive insights. Subsequently, in breakout rooms, we'll work hands-on in developing these competitive insights. And then back in the plenary, we will ask, okay, how do we make these insights actionable? How do we unlock value so that at the end of the day, we can be proud of having generated ROI and really elevated the insights function and the insights gathering to the next level. Ultimately, it's about generating impact from insights. Before we do all of this, let me introduce the Deallus team. With me here today, I have Gloria Kwon, Philip Hart, and Jack Florio. It's a great privilege to be with these three colleagues here today. For my part, I have a background in strategy, marketing, and a combination of experience in management consulting and in the industry. Until about a year ago, I was Chief Analytics Officer at GSK US Pharma. Prior to that, I had a similar role with with Bayer US Pharma. I've built analytics and data functions. I've been responsible for brand planning for a number of years. I had a key role in launching a variety of products, both globally and in the US, including vaccines, oncology, and women's health care. And I've had senior roles in a number of consulting organizations, including in the legendary Bayer Business Consulting. And that includes a role in China. I joined Deallus this January in a new role to lead the US team. And I'm very excited to working with you here today. And again, hope you'll find this workshop not only interesting, but also fun. I spoke at EyeforPharma before. I'm a big fan, as I mentioned before. So very, very pleased to be here. With that, over to Gloria.
Hi, I'm Gloria Kwon. I'm a senior principal out of the LA office, and I have 9 years of experience in consulting. My background is primarily in commercial strategy, new product planning, brand strategy, and portfolio optimization, working across different pharma organizations as well as functions.
And hi, this is Philip, also based in New York here with Peter, although working from home at the moment, like I expect many of you are. I started off my work after a PhD in biochemistry in University of Warwick and joined the global CRO Covance, where I worked in value and access, and since joined Deallus around 2015 and have become sort of competitive intelligence thoroughbred after my time there. I'll pass on to Jack.
Good afternoon. My name is Jack Florio. I'm based here in California. I'm a partner with Deallus. I've been with Deallus since 2013. My background is 30 years in the pharmaceutical industry, where I worked for Lilly in 15 different roles in the US and abroad. Post Lilly, I've been spending a lot of time in the biotech space with early stage and mid stage companies, building a network and actively using that global network for a variety of roles that I've had in terms of business development, corporate development, and CEO. As well as I'm an investor and personal angel investor, and also managing director of the investment bank here in Southern California.
Thank you. Wonderful. Over to Phil.
Yeah, so we'll just do a little bit of an icebreaker to get folks engaging a little with what you see on the screen. Nothing too embarrassing, I hope, just a poll. So we'll load that up now and take a little bit of time, some relevant questions for where we're at in current affairs. How many hours are you spending on Zoom every day? And what do you like most about EyeforPharma? So please answer them quickly if you can, and we'll take some results. About 50% of the way there. Very engaged. Thank you, everybody. 17 of 23 have voted. So let's wait a little bit more. It hasn't been a minute yet. Okay, let's cap it now. So 1 to 2 hours on Zoom every day. I'm very jealous of these people. I'm more in the 3 to 4 hour bucket myself, and good to see that there's lots of people recognizing that we're not actually in Philadelphia at the moment. We're virtual, and the fact that some free people taking advantage of the free application this year. So welcome to those who are benefiting from that, and looking forward to living up to the other things around caliber of speakers, content, and learning about competitive insights. So thank you for participating in that. And I'll pass on to some housekeeping.
Thanks, Phil. So just a few additional housekeeping items before we get started. The first is to please contribute. Everyone here really plays a part in making this meeting successful, so please be engaged and participate as we go into our breakout groups. Be creative. This is really the time to discuss new ideas and perhaps teach us something new. So please speak up, and remember that this is a safe space, so don't be afraid to share your opinions, and also just have an open discussion with the colleagues that are gathered here today. So with that, I will turn it over to Peter so we can start diving into the workshop.
Thank you so much. And as I mentioned earlier, we will present a baseline understanding in the form of two brief video clips. Featured here is Ravi Dar and Zoe Chance, both at the time of the videos associated with Yale School of Management, the Center for Customer Insights. Some of you may know either Ravi or Zoe or both, and maybe even have worked with them, particularly those of you who may have had some background in the consumer goods industry. Some of you may have attended their annual summit or gatherings. I personally have had a number of interactions with Ravi, not myself, with Zoe. So if we could, let's watch these videos. Each is about 2 to maximum 3 minutes. I hope we'll get the audio to work. And after the first, we'll pause for a minute just to recap the main points, and then we go into the second. Let's start with Ravi. What is an insight?
To me, an insight is really a
Can't get the audio.
powerful discovery about underlying motivations of people that drive their action. So there are a couple of words here in this. So one is it's a discovery process, which is it's not something that people can necessarily articulate. It can come through observation, it can come through data, it can come through trend, but it's not the data. It's a discovery about the motivation that comes from the data. And its insight is motivation about something that drives some kind of an action. It could be a choice. It could be how likely am I to be an advocate. It could be about how much, what makes me think. So an insight is really sort of unlocking people's motivations for engaging in certain action. If I had to sort of say what the two big ideas or questions are, they're around motivation and goals, that people have many goals drive your actions or choices. But what we do know over the last 15, 20 years is that, yeah, but people have lots of goals, and these goals are not static. They kind of, you can watch TV and suddenly your goal to be patriotic might become very strong. You can talk to your parents and suddenly your goal to be parental will become strong. So I think one of the key insights that has melded what we already knew motivations was important, what we didn't know, that these motivations could be non-consciously activated or subconsciously activated. It can be by the marketer, by the environment, by the situation. The very fact that we're sitting in a room like this, we feel more scholarly. So let's first talk about what constitutes a good insight.
Yeah.
That's where the challenge arises,
Right.
because insights tend to be granular. The CEO or the P&L heads are looking for something to get a big shift, right? So they say, oh, okay, even let's talk about behavioral economics. You're giving me these 10 tweaks, but I need to grow my sales by 5% next year, and my company is like a $50 billion company. So the first organization challenge is how do you scale the insights? So what are these insights that I can apply across business units, create capabilities that cut across? And I think so the challenge of going from granular single events that we were talking about earlier in the interview to something that can be scaled very high is a challenge for the insight world. How to deal with it, how do you even measure it, which ones to focus on. So there's that's one issue. But I find this very interesting, how there's two worlds. And so companies, the big companies monitor both trends.
Yep.
So, a company like Pepsi will monitor trends on obesity, on health, on time spent outside home, women in the workforce, aging of the population. And then, of course, they'll also do the insights from the bottom up. Insights are more bottom up, this is more top down. But I find that companies don't do a good job of meshing the two worlds as well as they could.
So let me pause here and just summarize. Of course, this was a lot. This was very rich, and I can recommend other videos you will find on YouTube featuring Ravi Dar. To me, the most important point he made was fairly at the beginning, but he picked it up later. An insight is a powerful discovery of an underlying motivation that drives people's actions. a powerful discovery of an underlying motivation that drives people's actions. So that's Ravi. Let's go over to Zoe.
Hello, Zoe.
Hi, thank you for having me today.
I'm very happy to be here, and thank you for doing this. Tell us a little bit about what your area of research and study is, if you will.
Sure, so some of the research that I do with YCCI is on behavioral economics, and especially nudges that we can use to help people be happier, help them be healthier, and we work a lot with food and eating behaviors to try to help people be healthy by accident. When we're creating environments for choice, so it could be a physical environment like a break room or a cafeteria, or it could be a sheet of paper where you're making a decision whether to donate your organs or join a 401k. Everything that you do to create this environment is going to affect people's choices one way or another. So you can do it intentionally or you can do it unintentionally. When you're trying to get people to join a 401k, nobody's saying that you have to. So I think the key thing is not taking away choices, and people get very upset, especially employees in a work environment, if you start to take away options that they like. Like if you take M&Ms out of the break room, then yes, you'll have social upheaval and revolution.
Question I love to ask people, such as yourself in particular, is how you define an insight.
I define an insight as a discovery of a fact that you didn't know before, which can affect thinking and behavior in the future. I'm doing a project right now that I'm just starting, so I don't have data on, but it's looking at breakthroughs and the long-term effect of breakthroughs and what determines whether somebody who has had a revelatory experience and they felt like I've learned something that's going to change my life. Apparently about 90% of those people don't retain that insight, or else they just don't follow through with it. So I have a pilot group of people right now that I've done the first survey with. They've told me what breakthrough they had after this personal growth workshop they did, and I'm following up with them over the next 6 months to see who stays with it and who falls through the cracks.
And to try to understand what a breakthrough is and what causes a breakthrough then as well?
To try to understand.
And how to keep it alive.
This one is how to keep it alive.
Yeah. Well, wonderful. I thank you so much.
So this was Zoe, and again, a teaser, probably worthwhile following up and seeing what else she says. There's more available on YouTube. But for our purposes, what I want to highlight is one comment. She said, an insight is a discovery of a fact you didn't know before and that can influence actions or behavior. So fairly similar to what Ravi said earlier. Let me pause here and ask if any of you have seen these clips before. If this concept resonates. It's clearly originally adopted or created for CPG. But I've actually seen Ravi at several instances in different big pharma companies. And if you check out his website, he's worked with several. So certainly, there's been some infiltration into big pharma. So I'm just curious, how does this resonate? How does this sit with you? And are you thinking about insights in a similar way? For full disclosure, my screen went black. I can't see you right now. I hope you can see me. So I cannot call you by name. But I would ask you unmute yourself and maybe just a few of you volunteer how this resonates and your reaction.
Yes, hello, everybody. This is Enrique speaking. I just wanted to take a stab at it. Definitely both concepts or the concepts highlighted do resonate with me. However, I think the difficult or important part is how do we establish, for me, the concern that I have is when an anecdote actually becomes a fact. An anecdote can be discovered in the insighting process, but that doesn't mean that it becomes a true insight. So I think trying to establish when that anecdote continues or becomes a fact to actually be considered a valuable insight that we can grasp.
Great point. I appreciate that. Thank you, Enrique. Anybody else? Again, I apologize. My screen is black. I can't see you guys. But I appreciate the comment. Let's keep in mind. One more, please.
Yes, I'll take a stab at it. So our company has been training the sales force and using insights to really draw in the customers that they're interacting with. Insights really get their attention, and it helps them realize that you're understanding their either customer base or their patients or whatever it may be, and you're understanding their industry, and it really kind of brings them into the conversation. I think they work well, and we've been having some great success with working with them.
Great, I'm glad to hear that. And I know this from a industry panel I attended with peers in the pharma industry about 2 years ago. There were several insights leaders who also used the concept of insights to have very tangible and actionable discussions and plans, and really generate impact if it's in the field or if it's within their own organization operationally. But I'm very glad to hear that. Do we have a third person? Any other?
Yeah, I'll pitch in. I mean, these both resonate with me, and I look at insights a little bit differently coming from a marketing perspective because, my main goal is to exchange insights with KOLs. So, like Mark just said, bring value to them to try to understand what we uncover, and then also, try to understand from their point of view. But then I think where I struggle is taking back those insights and implementing them. I feel like we bring back a lot of great information that just kind of sits there, or we're gathering insights after the fact instead of trying to gather them proactively and weave them into what we're developing and trying to accomplish as an organization.
Excellent. And that's one of the points we actually want to show and discuss today, how to make these insights not only actionable, but ultimately how to unlock value and generate real impact. Actually, on this topic, I've spoken at EyeforPharma before. There's also good literature out there. We have a reference to Gartner later. They have a good case about it. But I agree, that's certainly one of the key challenges. So thank you so much. I really appreciate how you're making this workshop interactive with these academic definitions and with some of your feedback. Let's turn to a framework which I ascribe to a great practitioner, Lou Cashman, former global VP Market Insights at BMS, and prior to that in a similar role at Kraft. Lou unfortunately had a medical appointment today, so couldn't come, but of course he's said he's excited about us talking about his framework here. Again, because I can't see my screen, I trust you advance the slide. So what everybody should see now is on the left-hand side, the framework of 5 points, and then a quote on the right-hand side. So this framework actually is pretty standard by now, and used by not only many marketing agencies, but also throughout big pharma, in part because Lou Cashman actually has a big fellowship and he ran the market research program at Rutgers University. So some of you may actually know him. I've personally seen this framework being used by a number of marketing agencies in the context of product launch and brand planning and several other occasions, implicitly or explicitly. But let's discuss what it looks like. So it's very simple. It really consists of 5 key points, and it leverages some of the aspects that Ravi and Zoe talked about. So number 1, an insight is a fundamental truth or new piece of information. Number 2, it's articulated in custom language and include the why. Number 3 is there's a emotional undertone or emotional dimension, often to be found in a well-articulated insight. Ultimately, it's a call for change or call for action. And when implemented, the insight actually promises growth or competitive advantage. And so if we look at the quote on the right-hand side, you will recognize that. As a longtime cardiologist, I care for my patients and I work hard to cure them from debilitating conditions. I'm so glad we have so many effective treatments now, and it's so satisfying to see many patients improve or even being healed. However, There are quite a few who struggle to take the medication regularly. I suspect this is for financial reasons, sometimes for practical reasons, and some may simply not keep things together anymore. I just wish something could be done about this in terms of helping patients be compliant and receive the full benefit of what they have been prescribed. So I think in this quote, you will recognize these points from the framework. There's a fundamental truth. In other words, there's a new discovery being made in the persona of this physician. And to, I think it was Enrique's point, this shouldn't be an N of one. This shouldn't be one data point. This should be summarized and aggregated, of course, from extensive market research or competitive insights research. It's articulated in customer language. There's an emotional dimension. You may have picked up on that. There's a call for change. And finally, if that change is implemented, there's competitive advantage for the company that's commissioned that kind of research. So with that, let me throw this over to Jack, who will talk about the framework of a competitive insight, which is what we're introducing here.
Jack, you're on mute, I think. You might want to unmute yourself.
Yes, I am. Thank you very much. Thanks, Peter. As you can see, there's a lot of parallels between what Peter spoke about and the competitive insight. When you look at the framework here, it's a discovery. You've learned something. What I liked also about what Mark said, it's in the customer's language. It's in the asset owner's language that brings the customer into the discussion. Presents a challenge or proof of a competitive assumption, clearly warrants change, and there's an opportunity for growth or competitive advantage. And if you think about our jobs, I mean, data is abundant in what we do. Information comes from managing that data. As Enrique said, it's a matter of looking at the data, managing it, coming to some assumptions from it. But really, the insights are defined as something much more actionable. It's more valuable than just answering a question, but they create business value. So if you read this competitive insight here, we just learned that a competitor's safety trial endpoint was not reached. This suggests that our assumptions of their strategy of squeezing our launch asset on safety with their product A and on efficacy with their product B will likely not play out. So therefore, until they have reorganized and may be considered other trials, we can assume we now have a window of 6 months for our safety message to be considered superior. With this positioning advantage, we can help an estimated 440,000 patients prior to some other treatment even be considered. So you can see they took this discovery and turned it into something that was going to be very actionable for their sales organization. How's it used? Again, inform strategy discussions and to activate tangible efforts in the field. Any comments, questions, thoughts? Okay, then let's move on. In the next part of the workshop, you're going to have an opportunity to generate competitive insights. For about 15 minutes, we're going to use the Zoom breakout facility to separate you into breakout rooms. Don't have to worry about getting lost, finding the different rooms. You're going to be there automatically. There'll be a facilitator in that room. Each team is going to be presented with an intelligence briefing. And from that, the team needs to collectively produce competitive insights. And I encourage you all to get involved in the dialogue and all to get involved in helping the facilitator put together a competitive insight from what you see. There's going to be 3 groups. Well, one group is going to be R&D and supply chain. Phil will be running that group. I'll be joining him. The second group is commercial, US market. Peter will be facilitating that with Maggie joining him. And the third group is commercial, global marketing, and that will be facilitated by Gloria with Jesse joining them. If you have any difficulties in moving around in the rooms, or if you have any technical difficulties, either send a message. Those are either visual, raise your hand, and we'll fix the situation for you. Any questions?
And I'll be resharing my screen as well. So we should all be set. Can you all see my screen?
Yep. Yes, we can.
That's great, thank you. And in this smaller setting, we can come off mute. I wondered if I might encourage any more additional people to present on video so we can see you. If not, no worries, but in this smaller setting, it might be more comfortable to do so. We have amongst us 8 different people. So there's Jack and I, and then Carla. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, around 4 or 5 participants. So I'd love to hear from you during this session. But what we produced is a brief, right? On the left-hand side is a set of intelligence facts. Some might be more borderline opinion. And then we want to weave that into a competitive insight like Jack presented just now. And we've reprinted the framework for that on the bottom here. So I'm going to read through the intelligence, right? And for this, there's 2 parts. There's a situation and there's the intelligence. So here we go. And after I introduce this, we'll do a little round of introductions as well. You are an emerging big pharma vaccine company. You're sponsoring an adult vaccine through phase 2 at the moment. That's where you've gone to. And you expect your phase 3 to be very expensive. And your vaccine is a 3-dose vaccine on a 6-month schedule. Whereas the competitor is slightly more advanced at phase 3, and they're currently 2 years into what they expect to be a 6-year trial. The competitor is expected, therefore, to be first in disease if they're successful. Your intelligence building on that situation or that challenge is that they are a 3-dose vaccine on a 1-month schedule, so that's slightly different to yours. Their phase 3 has really slow enrollment, so CI predicts that will complete in 8 years or so, actually, beyond the target completion date. And they've added lots of trial sites very recently. They've tripled the number in the last year. CI indicates enrollment's really swift in EU, whereas it lags in other areas by a factor of about 10. And the CI indicates also that the CRO is very hands-on with the patients in the trial. They contact every patient every 2 weeks. And CI also reports that the enrollment challenges experienced are multifactorial, including folks saying the disease will never happen to me, so I don't need to enroll in this trial and expose myself to an unknown vaccine. And also the at-risk population is elderly, so they find that follow-up burdensome if they're going to be part of this trial for a long while. So I'll just give you all a moment to digest that. That's not going to disappear. It's going to stay on your screen while we fill out the right-hand side. But I wondered if we could do a round of intros in this setting. I see one familiar face at least on the call, which is Alexandros. I'm going to name call you, yeah. Alexandros.
Yeah.
How are you?
Hello.
Good?
Hi. Yeah, I'm good. How are you guys?
Very well, thanks. Alexandros used to work with us at Deallus and is now at, where are you, Alexandros?
I'm in a pharmaceutical company in Greece. It's called Pharmaceuticals. And I moved 3 months ago back to Greece after 10 years in the UK and almost 3 years with Deallus.
Very nice. Thank you. And great to have you with us. I wonder as we go down the list, maybe we could, I'm going to call you out because you're not on mute. Harry, are you on the call? Forgive me if I pronounce the name wrong.
I'm Hari Patel. I'm a Senior Director at BioMarin. I lead the portfolio strategy team.
Welcome. And then Maria, if you're willing to unmute yourself, say hello. Or if not, you can introduce yourself in a bit if you're struggling with controls. But Ruchon, would you, and forgive me if I didn't get the pronunciation quite right.
Hi, it's actually Ruchon, but I know it's really hard to pronounce. I'm actually from the academia, and I'm currently a postdoc in an infectious disease lab. I'm just exploring different interests during this locking down period.
Excellent. Yeah, glad to have you with us. Hope that you can provide some unique perspective. Thanks for the leniency on the pronunciation. And then finally, we have Maria. If you'd be willing to just say hello. Or Tamara.
Yes, hi, this is Tamara Donaldson, and I'm with Takeda, and I'm with Medical Affairs.
Thank you. So if we are to transit to the generation of a competitive insight, how would we go about phrasing this? Any thoughts on the competitive situation and what this means. So I'll give you a little bit of a grace period to think about what you see on the screen.
I'll go first. My first reaction that came to my mind was the competitor, based on their intelligence, it's probably going to cost our phase 3 a little more than what we're expecting, for about $500 million.
So I'm going to write this down. We can agree on final copy, which we're going to present back into the room at the end, by the way. So I'd like to get a speaker for this at the end. So based on the competitor's phase 3, our phase 3 may be more costly than anticipated.
No, I meant competitors' phase 3 will be more costly because there's costs that are associated with the phase 3 competitor intelligence, right? If we're expecting phase 3 to cost $500 million for any player in the market, including ours, there will be on the north end of it.
Yeah.
So.
Let me throw out a hint for the group. Going back to the slide we had in the other room, it talked about something we learned, and based on what we learned, it suggested something. And then what it suggested points us to certain actions. So think about those things as you think about what you're reading on the left.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like it may be some challenges even with whoever is going to be the actual person receiving the vaccine, in terms of patients may be more reluctant to the vaccine.
So what does that mean for our world if we're the next generation vaccine? How would you translate that to what we should do as a sponsor of another vaccine racing to market? So I'm going to also point out that, yeah, sorry.
I was just going to say, I'm not really sure, but maybe reconsider the customer base, or reconsider the target.
Yeah, if maybe there's a problem here with accessing these patients to get into the trial as well, right? Does that present an opportunity, or is it purely a challenge?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's it's hard to say because there's no perfect information. But if I can speculate, if Europe is enrolling 10 times faster, it is for elderly at risk, and most people have mindset of it's not going to happen to me kind of perspective. You got to follow where the patients are and why certain patients are easier to recruit versus others. So want to understand why behind the European sites recruiting 10 times faster. Is it because they're all located in a very fine, more concentrated location, relatively speaking, to countries like US and Australia and others? And if there's a way, if the CRO is doing its follow-ups every week via phone for 2 years, is that the right medium if the patient population is at risk elderly? Is there a better option available there? Just thinking out loud, sorry.
Yeah, so I'm going to add this onto your prior bullet point. We may, as the next sponsor of a vaccine, need to optimize the way we reach out to patients based on this insight. I'm going to point you out to also some of the timing information here. I'm going to highlight the timing information in this turquoise color. And then also some elements of the TPP, which I'm going to highlight together in red. These hopefully marry up a little bit.
So I had a question. I did not understand the vaccine, 3-dose vaccine at 6 months individual. I'm not my background is not in the vaccine. Can you help me understand? So
very fair question.
6 months or 18 months for one patient to be completely dosed for that versus a 3-month schedule for the competitor?
In vaccines, you have to vaccinate multiple times to get the right kind of immune response, right? So this takes a little bit of technical vaccine knowledge. And some vaccine schedules are 3 doses, some are 2, some are 1, most more than 1. And in this case, for our vaccine, the one that we're sponsoring is Pharmaco X, their dose series takes 6 months to complete, whereas the competitor that we're looking at takes only 1 month to complete.
Oh, well, okay. So even with the longer trials, they have a significant advantage to not fully enroll much sooner than us.
Could we get a time check, Carla?
Yeah, so we have just over 3 minutes. Time has flown.
Yeah.
So I think from the information highlighted in red, does it mean like our competitor are able to finish more clinical, like more patients within the same time frame?
Yeah. Sorry, could you repeat the question?
So from the information highlighted in red, that the competitor's vaccine is a 3 dose over 1 month, and ours is 3 dose over 6 months. Does it mean within the same time frame, our competitor can complete more patient trials?
Yes, absolutely. But actually, if you think about these products when they're on the market, that's what I'd encourage you to think about. Which one would be the most preferable?
But would the would a consumer prefer something with more efficacy or something that's shorter in time frame?
Yeah, that's a trade-off, right? That would need to be explored.
I would think they would be more frequent to take the 1 month schedule, and you may have potential, lost a follow-up with a 6 month schedule.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
No, I was just saying that I would see the preference being more so a 1 month schedule versus 6 month. You may, lose patients to follow up to continue their, the other parts of their vaccine if you have a 6 month versus a 1 month.
Timing wise, do we see any benefit maybe of potentially leapfrogging this other asset? If we can get to trial sooner and optimize where we recruit from?
I think there's time, like there's 2 years time that we can catch up with our phase 3, but it will be challenging because I can see that it's a rare disease, and then they have a lot of clinical trial sites already. They have tripled the clinical site, the trial sites. They are working in the EU. So we would definitely need to identify sites or potential sites that they don't operate. And perhaps we can recruit patients or it's more possible to recruit patients. I mean, I'm kind of worried because of the rare disease. So if the disease is rare, then maybe it will be very difficult to recruit. Even if we focus on Europe, for example, where there is a hint that in European countries it is easier to recruit. So there should be a better understanding with regards to potential clinical trial sites.
Thank you, guys. You'll see a notification come up, I think, saying we're going back into the plenary. I wonder if I could get someone to speak to these points. I can support you, no problem, when we go back into that room. Alexandros, could I call on you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
You're back in the main
room.
room.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I think we're all back in plenary. Can you hear me? Wonderful. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to have volunteers in quotation marks from each breakout to take a minute or two and walk the rest of us through the overall case study, the briefing, and of course the quote that you all worked on. We'll start with the first group, which is Phil's group focused on R&D.
And hopefully you can see that slide in front of you now. I'm going to pass to Alexandros to review a little bit about this. And Alexandros, you might be on mute, so just check that Staffing hasn't. This is still.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
So basically, this was a situation where we are funding a clinical trial, phase 2 clinical trial for a vaccine, and we're trying to move on to our phase 3 clinical trial. However, the competitor is already advanced in a phase, in a 6-year phase 3 trial, and they're in clinical trials already for 2 years now. And the competitor is also expected to be first in class. There were some important insights with regards to the dosing of the vaccine. I don't know how much you know about vaccines, but apparently our competitor can complete the vaccine their vaccination schedule in 1 month, whilst we can do it in 6 months. And we have also identified that there is quite slow, the enrollment is quite slow for their phase 3 trial. And we predict, RCI predicts that the phase 3 will be complete in 8 years instead of 6. And then we have also identified that the competitor has tripled the number of sites for their phase 3 study, whilst the sites in the European Union seem to recruit faster compared to other places. And also we're talking about a rare disease, and people, that's why people are hesitant to participate in the trial. And also it's more like a disease that affects the elderly. So they kind of find the follow-up schedule, vaccination schedule, quite burdensome.
There was quite a lot of factors here. So the idea was to look at the trial, look at those learnings about the things that had gone wrong with recruitment, optimize that, potentially leapfrog the timeline, which had been protracted for this competitor, and to worry less about some of the disadvantages of the TPP of our vaccine, because their vaccine, which seemed advantageous from a TPP perspective, was not going to launch before ours. So I'll cap that one off there, and we can pass on for the sake of time. And thank you so much, Alexandros, for contributing.
It's fine.
And Harry also, and Tamara for your contributions in my group. I'm going to pass screen share to Peter. Peter's group.
Yes, thank you so much. Actually, Maggie will share her screen, and we have Lauren, who volunteered and give a quick, just a brief 1 or 2 minute highlight of the case, and then of the asset owner's quote. Lauren, you may be on mute.
Indeed, I was on mute. So we are going to be second to market in a women's health marketplace. The competitor has launched poorly. They've, the perception by the customers, both patients and physicians, is that they're presenting it as a lifestyle versus a life-threatening disorder. So they've really just screwed it up in the first 6 months. Now they do recognize that they've screwed it up and they're looking to relaunch, but the opportunity we have is because we already have their competitive insight, that we can launch our campaign using the information they've already uncovered, which is this is a serious medical need warranting therapy. Our product is, their product has profound adverse events and mild to moderate efficacy. So we can launch with the disease, the underlying disease message that it is urgent and in need of warranting therapy, and we provide a therapy that is effective with a good safety profile.
Thank you. Yes, the safety profile is really important because the launch will be much more competitive now that our competitor is relaunching. Thank you for that. Thank you, team. And we'll throw over to Gloria and team 3 again in 1 minute, if we could.
Sounds good. Let me quickly get my screen up. And I believe for our group, Susanna will be presenting our case.
Okay, here I am. We have a new oncology therapy that is going to be launched in 12 months. This is our first introduction in oncology for the company. And we have plans also to expand to other oncology indications with our pipeline. And we are going to be, there are other targeted therapies in the indication, but we are going to be the first in class with launch anticipated in 12 months. So the main competitive insights that we gather were coming from the competitive intelligence. And first of all, patients are hopeful for their specific cancer type, more segmentation. They also want a targeted therapy, patient segments for better efficacy and less side effects. We also have to investigate and see how are the perceptions of patients and HCP, on oral versus IV therapies. We also want to know the diagnostic testing, how the cost associated with, and who is paying for this. Also, another important thing to know is the coverage through private insurance, and coverage for new drugs is efficacy better than the current standard of care. And another important thing to consider is that we will only have 6 months ahead of the direct competitor because they will be launching in 18 months. So we have our strategies and call to action, presenting the data to physicians and patients. We also want to work in patient advocacy and in digital engagements. And that's it.
Excellent. I thank you so much. And so the question then is, what will we do with these insights? If we can go to the next page, please. Yes. Ultimately, the question is, what are the keys for success? And how do we unlock the impact of these insights? So what I've seen as really useful and critical is that decisions are identified, illustrated, and institutionalized through competitive insight. They're identified through the competitive intelligence, through the briefings that you saw. They're illustrated in the asset owner's language. That's the quote that we all worked on real hard. And they're institutionalized through your functions, cadence, or cycle of decision-making. And this could be budget cycle, brand planning, strategic planning, and the respective executive meetings and decision-making that you have in these cycles. There's a great Gartner case, which I mentioned earlier, which is referenced here at the bottom. And in the interest of time, I will briefly summarize now. We go to the next page. I hope you all enjoyed how we illustrated the way to move strategic intelligence into competitive advantage and do this through these competitive insights. And finally, hope you had fun, built some new connections, and enjoyed the workshop. With that, over to Gloria. Gloria may be on mute.
Yes, I was on mute. Thanks, Peter, and thank you, everybody, for all of your contributions today. We just wanted to say as a final thank you and let you all know that we'll be making a contribution to support COVID-19 research on behalf of the presenters for each of the groups today, as well as those that were sharing their video during our meeting. So thank you so much for all of your contributions. And I believe we have one final poll question before we sign off for today.
Let's do it.
We're almost at completion. 2 more left, but might want to end it.
Excellent. So again, I really thank you for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed the workshop. Please feel free to reach out. Big thanks to EyeforPharma. And with that, we hope to be in touch again soon. Take care, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Great
you.
call.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.